guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Susan and she is a
sign language interpreter.
Because I am going to be learning sign language and I'm just going to be like asking her some questions about it and just like, without further ado, let's hop into it. Alright, so I have a list of questions here to ask her. The first question is, what inspired you to become a sign language interpreter?
Well, I used to be an actress. I was an actor. I was a performer. And I got hired by a theater company that was located at the National Technical Institute for the Deaf, which is one of there's three big schools, colleges for deaf people who use sign language that a lot of them go to. And one of them is that school that I got hired at. So I traveled for 1 year to all the different deaf schools all around the country performing in American Sign Language. And I got to learn this language that year. And so afterward I thought, I know the language, I really like the language, I think I'll go back to college to learn how to interpret.
Wow, that's really cool. I had no idea you were an actress.
Do you know Mr. David is an actor?
No, I had no idea. Are you still an actress?
I'm not, but he is. I'll give you his YouTube channel so you can see his videos.
Oh, well. Alright, second question. So you can answer one of these questions or both because they're kind of relevant. So you can either answer, how did you get started in your career as a sign language interpreter, or can you tell me about the training and education required to become a sign language interpreter?
Oh, sure. I'll tell you about the training and education.
All right.
Now, there's a national certifying body called the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf, RID. And to be a sign language interpreter, you should be certified by RID.
So you have to go there?
No, they just certify you. So you have to take a big test and see if you pass. First, like a written test to make sure you understand all the ethics and you know some culture about deaf people and history, and then a performance test to make sure you know how to actually interpret. So to be able to take that test now, you have to have at least a bachelor's degree. And many people, what I did is go to an interpreter training program. So I got an associate's degree going to a 2-year program to learn how to work from English to ASL and ASL to English. But before I went to that, I was already fluent in both languages.
Oh.
Okay, what were you going to ask?
I was just going to say, how do you really get started? Do they have to tell you, what to say and what not to say to that person for, the industry thing?
For the which part?
The industry.
The ethics thing?
Oh, the ethics thing? Yeah, when you study how to become an interpreter, there's a lot of ethics that you have to learn. One of the most important things is I never say, I'm not talking for myself. I'm just interpreting between one person who uses sign language and one person who uses English. So it doesn't matter what I think, right? So even whatever they're saying, I just make sure they can communicate. But I never can talk for myself. Mm-hmm. That's one part of the ethics. And then whatever they say is confidential. I don't repeat any of it. I don't tell people where I'm going to work because it's all confidential.
Okay, well, thank you. Could you share some common misconceptions people have about sign language or deaf people?
Oh, sure. A lot of people think sign language is universal, which is funny to me because is English universal?
No.
Is any spoken language universal?
No.
Right. Every country you go to uses, some other countries use English, but even other countries who use English use it a little differently than we do.
In the United States, certain people, some people do speak English, but they just have a different accent.
Right. Or in America, we say we're going to go on vacation. If you go to England, they say they're going on holiday. We both speak English, but we use different words for the same thing.
Yeah, we use different terms.
Right.
They call an elevator a lift.
Exactly. And sign language like that is different in every country.
Because different people use different signs. I've heard there's an American Sign Language and British Sign Language.
Yeah,
too.
and they're completely different. American Sign Language, British Sign, there's French Sign, there's
Australian.
Auslan it's called.
I heard
Australian.
that there's over 300 types of sign language.
I haven't researched that, but I bet you're right. Okay. I would say another common misconception that some people have about deaf people, and again, I think this is a silly one, is that they can't drive. When really, deaf people are safer drivers than people who can hear, statistically.
I remember that like a week ago or so, I watched a video about like deaf people answering questions people asked on Google.
Mhm.
And there's just one where they're like, can deaf people drive? And they said that they're actually really self-aware.
Exactly.
More than
Because they pay attention all the time to everything going on around.
They're not blind. They can
Exactly.
see.
Thank you. They're not blind.
Yeah, they're not blind. They're people. They're people. They can drive.
Exactly. Sometimes if you interpret things that are public, like if you interpret a theatrical show,
Like if you're at like a play, then someone's there.
yeah, sometimes people interpret theatrical shows, some people interpret concerts, a lot of interpreters like doing music interpreting. So
What advice would you give to someone who's interested in pursuing a career in sign language interpreting?
I would say first, practice your English. You have to be super, super, super good at English. A lot of people think you have to learn sign language, which obviously you have to be super, super good at sign language too. But you have to be good at English because you're not only listening to English and doing it in sign language, you're watching sign language and changing
saying
that
it out
into
loud.
English.
Yeah, so
'cause
like
you're
if
going
someone,
both ways.
if someone who's deaf is interpreting, then the sign language interpreter says, "Today they say what they're saying."
If someone who's deaf is signing, right? So
Yeah,
if the
'cause
deaf
so-
person is signing, yeah, so today I'm here to buy a car. What is the loan rate? Then the interpreter needs to watch that in American Sign Language and go, today I'm here to buy a car. What percentage is the loan rate today?
Yeah.
And then when the car guy says it's 7%, then the interpreter says it in sign language back to the deaf person. So a lot of times people forget that you have to be really good at English
I am good at
and
English,
really good
though.
at ASL.
I'm good at English.
Perfect. So all you got to do is learn ASL.
Yeah.
Other piece of advice is if you want to be an interpreter, you have to be an excellent multitasker because you're never doing one thing at the same time.
So I'm not a very good multitasker.
You can practice that.
Like, what do you think I could do to help me? Like, what do you have to do? Like, that's multitasking.
Well, usually when you interpret from American Sign Language to English and English to ASL, you do simultaneous interpreting, which
You like
means
go back and forth and back and forth.
yeah, at the same time. So while you're signing, I'm saying in English, and while they're saying in English, I'm saying in sign language.
So you have to be prepared to do both.
Right, but
So you're like, today I went to the doctor's, and you have to like look at it like.
well, like if you're interpreting a spoken language like German, you would, if I was the interpreter, you would speak in German and I would listen for maybe a paragraph and then you would stop and then I would say in German and then you would say more, or in English. But in
Yeah.
American Sign Language, there's no pause usually. Usually we're doing it all
just
at the
keeps
same
on
time.
going. and
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Ah. Another question is, where do you interpret? Do you interpret at like schools or like where do you interpret?
I would say in general, think about it like wherever you go, as somebody who can hear, deaf people go the same exact places. So I could interpret at a doctor's office if they have a doctor's appointment, or the eye doctor, or for a job interview.
Or a restaurant?
Maybe say they go to a restaurant for like a big birthday party for their work and the other people don't know sign language, yeah, they might want to bring an interpreter. But if they're just going to a restaurant to have dinner, they don't want an interpreter with them.
Well, how do they know? How does the what is it called again?
Like the wait staff?
The waiter. How does the waiter know what they're saying?
What do you think? What are some ideas? If
Like you
could,
point to it?
yes. You don't need to speak the same language with the waiter. He can show you what's on the special and you can point to what you want, or they could type on their phone what they want. Like, deaf people do almost everything independently. They only need interpreters if they need to interact with somebody who doesn't know their language.
Okay, so some more listeners. How do you say mom?
Mom.
Like this?
Mm-hmm. Mom.
Mom. It's just this, pointing thing. Then you just do mom.
And then dad. Up on your forehead. Dad.
Dad.
Mom, dad.
What's sister?
Or mother, father.
What's
Sister.
so
Sister.
Wait. Sis.
You switched hands again.
Okay.
Sister.
So you do your hands out like. What's your left hand?
It,
Like this.
that sign has changed over the years. Here's how I learned it. Girl. This is a sign for girl. Girl, same, is my
Same.
sister. So a girl who's like me is my sister. Sister.
Like this.
Sister. But now it's kind of changed a little bit. Sister.
So like this.
Uh-huh.
So thumb down.
Girl.
Girl.
Same as me.
Okay, and then do
Girl. Yep. Sister.
sister.
Finale. Okay.
All right. Okay. I know I said that was the last question before, but this is gonna be the last question. So now that I asked you all these questions, like 7, 8, 9,
10, 11, 12.
do you think what are some signs that you want to show me?
Well, when you came the other day and we talked about bathroom. Always an important sign to know where to go to the bathroom. Please. I think it's important to be polite. Please. If you're right-handed, yep, you're going to use your right hand.
But if you're left-handed, you use your
Yep. If you're left-handed, use that one. Thank you.
Thank you is out.
Mhm.
I thought it was this.
Thank you. Good. Thank you. They're similar. Yeah.
Good.
Good. What about bad? Bad.
Bad.
It's like good, but it flips. Bad.
Bad. So
Yeah.
like down like this.
Bad.
Is there
School.
school? I heard that this is name.
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 So you can do that. My
My.
name.
Name.
And now spell your name. Oh, you switched hands.
Oh, is it this hand?
Are you right-handed?
Yeah.
Yep. You got it. Lucky you knew my name. You're cheating.
One thing is I heard there's over 300 different types of sign language. So, is there a universal sign language for people that are traveling into different places where there are different types?
Well, what is so cool about deaf people is deaf people, mostly in America, in their lives, are interacting with people who don't know their language. So they're really good at figuring out how to communicate because they have to do it all day long, every day. So if a deaf person goes to France and meets another deaf person, they're going to be better at talking to that deaf person who signs a completely different language than you're going to be if you go to France and start trying to talk to a French girl who's your age and you both have different languages, because you're not used to having to figure out how to communicate. So the two deaf people who have different sign languages will be able to gesture.
But how do they know what sign?
They don't know each other's language. Well, this is a bad example because French Sign Language and American Sign Language have a lot of similarities. But if they went to Germany and it was a completely different sign language, still they would be better at figuring out how to communicate than a hearing person would.
And a hearing French person?
Right, than a hearing English speaker trying to speak to a hearing German speaker, where those languages are completely different. Because we're not used to having to work to communicate. Whereas deaf people will be so excited to meet another deaf person who's like them, they'll figure out a way to communicate, even though their languages are different.
Is there a universal sign language?
There is a language that's used at really high-level conferences. Not a lot of people know it. So you can't just go to another country and assume someone else will use it.
What do you
or
mean,
know it.
high-level conferences?
Like if it's a conference where there's people from 50 different countries and they all come together, there'll be interpreters probably for all of those languages, and then one interpreter who knows international sign who will do that too. I have a question for you. Do you speak English? Do you have any other languages?
I am learning Spanish on Duolingo.
See, so there's a big need now for interpreters who speak more than 2 languages. So I have 2 languages, but if you were a trilingual interpreter, if you got fluent in Spanish now when you were a kid, and then you learned ASL, plus you know English, there's a lot of need for that. So
Why do you need to know Spanish too?
because sometimes you're working with the Spanish population. So you could go between somebody who speaks Spanish to somebody who speaks ASL to someone who speaks English, all in that same setting. That's really needed now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, keep that in mind. Last question. Is there anything else about ASL that I haven't asked that people should know?
I would say, especially kids your age, that it's a fun language to learn, and you should learn it when you're your age. Because when you're younger, picking up languages is much easier than when you are an adult.
Why?
I think just kids' brains are better at picking up languages. I don't know. So it's better to learn any language the younger you can, and then if you're fluent when you're your age, then once you're an adult, you can learn how to interpret.
That's cool. What was I gonna say? Is there anything like, what's offensive to sign to deaf people, or just like
Things
say,
that are offensive? Well, I would say,
or that I should avoid?
yeah, if you're working with an interpreter and a deaf person, it's offensive to talk to the interpreter. So like, say, this is the deaf person, and you're you, and I'm here in the middle. And
I'm me.
You're you. You're over here. You're you. And this is the deaf person. We don't need this. So you are really talking to this person. I'm only here because you don't understand their language.
Okay.
So you look at them,
And the
talk to
interpreter?
them, and I'll just interpret. So don't look at me. Look at the person who you want to talk to. It's offensive if you're looking at me. And it's also offensive if you look at me as the interpreter and say, tell him that I'm going to go to Taco Bell for lunch. Don't say tell him, just look at him and go, I'm going to Taco Bell for lunch. You want to come?
And then you sign
And
it?
then I'll interpret it. Yeah.
Oh,
But don't
okay.
look at me and don't talk to me, because that's who you're talking to. I'm just here because you don't speak the same language.
Is there anything else that's offensive that I should avoid?
I mean, there's always offensive words, offensive signs, like in any language, that you want to avoid.
Like that word, like sign?
There are some words for disability that are offensive. Like, a lot of deaf people don't want to be called hearing impaired. Hearing impaired is kind of an offensive word now.
What does that mean?
That used to be the word that we called people who were deaf. We called them hearing impaired.
But that's rude to say.
It's rude to say now because there's nothing impaired about them. They're just deaf, and they're proud to be deaf. They're happy to be deaf. So now we call people deaf, hard of hearing, and then there are some people who are both deaf and blind, so they don't hear and they don't see, and we call them deaf blind. So deaf, hard of hearing, deaf blind.
Are there any resources or communities you recommend for individuals interested in learning sign language?
I would say first, when you learn sign language, you need to learn from a deaf person, because it's deaf people's language. So
And they know. So if you want to learn Spanish,
you go to somebody who grew up speaking Spanish, because it's their language. Same thing. You want to learn from somebody who's deaf. So sign up for an ASL class in your community. Libraries will have them, or community colleges or schools.
Nice.
But you want to make sure that the teacher is deaf. And then online, there's a lot of online resources.
do you know any?
Bill Vickers. I think online he's
Bill.
Dr. Bill Vickers is a good one.
Nice.
I need to check and make sure that's right. But I think he's
Can-
deaf and he teaches sign.
Can you go to a school for the deaf to learn?
They probably would have some classes, yeah, deaf
Oh,
schools. We don't have a school for the deaf right here by us, but yeah, deaf schools will probably teach.
One thing that I've been thinking about, I might know the answer to it, but how do they sign punctuation, periods and exclamation points?
What do you think the answer is?
I think their facial expression.
You're good. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sign language is American Sign Language is not just your hands, it's also your facial expression and also your body.
So if you're like this, you're moving around a lot, to show just that you're angry.
You can show a question with your eyebrows. I can interpret a conversation between two people by going like, so like, Cal said this, Joe said this, and I don't have to keep saying Cal said this, Joe said this. I can just go like that to show who's who. But mostly it's your face. You're right.
To add on to how they do facial expressions in sign language, how do you yell?
That's facial expression too, and also the strength of your sign. Like a sign can be really light, which wouldn't be yelly.
Like when you're like whispering?
Yeah, or a sign could be really big and angry. So you can in English, when you speak, it's inflection of your voice.
Yeah, I saw a YouTube video where a deaf person said that.
Yeah, and they were probably signing kind of.
So like the signs get bigger and
Yeah.
they're just like.
Yeah,
like
and the
that?
facial expression. Yep.
Hey guys, I just want to say thank you for watching the video. I'm glad that you took your time to do so. I'm sorry it was so long. I'll try to make it short next time. Also, ring the bell and like the video, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on my latest videos. Remember, you don't have to, but like the video if I should make a cooking video next, and subscribe if I should make a Barbie video next. See ya, bye.